Hey everybody, what's up? It's Josh here, back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about something that isn't exactly Chiefs related for my typical subscribers, but for anyone who isn't a Chiefs fan that stumbled upon this video, welcome. Please subscribe anyways, but today we're going to talk about is the Seattle Seahawks defense one of the worst of all time? And the reason this question is a hot topic right now is because, Seattle fans I know are upset with their defense this year. They don't like Ken Norton, the DC, very much. Excuse me. But, and then another thing is Pro Football Focus actually made a video. I guess they have a podcast or something like that. And they made a video bringing up the question, is this one of the worst defenses of all time? And I think that's pretty easily a no. The Seahawks defense is pretty bad, don't get me wrong, and I've watched a lot of their games this year, and they let a lot of teams march down the field, but they're not even close to the worst defense of all time. In fact, I don't even think they're worse than the 2018 Chiefs defense, which is the main reason I make this video, because I actually got into an argument on Twitter earlier today arguing with someone that the Chiefs defense from 2018 is worse than this year's Seahawks defense, and I'm going to tell you why. But first, let's just go over why the Seattle defense is considered so bad. So according to Andrew Siciliano on Twitter, he says, the Seahawks aren't just on pace for the worst pass defense at NFL history. They're primed to shatter the all-time record by nearly 1,000 yards. The last worst one was the 2011 Packers, who gave up 4,796 yards, and the Seahawks are on pace to give up 5,794. The Seahawks are also dead last in wide receiver yards given up per game. And just by watching them, you can tell a lot of guys seem to be out of place, or they're just getting straight up beat by their guy. I know a lot of Seahawks fans dislike players like Trey Flowers, who's been struggling a lot, but also the Seahawks have been missing, basically their best piece in the secondary for the better part of the year, so you also have to take that into consideration. In spite of that, though, one player can't just, I take that back because I'll get into that a little bit, but most of the time, one player isn't going to change the way an entire defense plays, especially in a particular aspect. But in reality, the Seahawks are one of, if not the worst defense in the NFL this season. They're giving up 30.4 points per game, which is second worst next to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they're also giving up 362 total yards of offense per game. However, the Seahawks defense isn't even close to the worst of all time. Now, could they be close to being one of the worst passing defenses of all time? Sure, that's a justifiable argument. But the Seahawks defense isn't even worse than the 2018 Chiefs. Now, I'm going to get into it right now. So, here's the thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is really where the argument ends. Seahawks fans can't even argue this with me. The Chiefs defense was so much worse, guys. I mean, here, let me just give you the numbers. So, in 2018, the Chiefs gave up over 405 total yards of offense per game. 405. That's ridiculous. And then on top of that, they gave up 273.4 pass yards per game. Their passing defense ranked 28th in the league, I believe. So, not as bad as the Seahawks passing defense this year. But, on the other hand, and this, like I said, this is where the argument ends. The Chiefs' rush defense was ranked dead last in the league, okay? At 132 rush yards given up per game. 132. That's crazy. Like I said, this is where the argument ends. I know I've been saying that and I've failed to get to the point, but listen to me right now. In 2020, so far, Seattle's run defense ranks 4th at 93 rush yards given up per game. So they're not even giving up 100 rush yards per game. That's the thing with the Chiefs defense, why you can't say the Seahawks defense is worse, because teams could beat the Kansas City Chiefs in whichever way they wanted to. The Seahawks pass defense this year is what the Chiefs run defense was in 2018. But at the same time, the Chiefs' pass defense also sucked, while the Seattle Seahawks' run defense is actually pretty good this year. Now, a lot of that is attributed to the fact that, well, when teams play Seattle, they're just going to throw. So, of course, your run defense is going to look a little bit better. But, I mean, they have names that can defend the run, like Bobby Wagner, for example. The Chiefs had nobody. They had a good pass rush that year. That's about it. Their rush defense wasn't good. They had no pass defense. And despite their pass rush actually having the most sacks in the league that year, they were tied with the Steelers with 52 sacks. Their secondary still sucked. So they were getting pressure, but they were still getting shredded in the secondary. Now, the Chiefs only gave up 26.3 points per game that year, which is a lot less than what the Seahawks are giving up this year on average. But that's the thing with the Chiefs, why they were so bad, is you can pick and choose whichever way you want to beat them. If you wanted to run it down their throats, you could do that and keep Mahomes off the field and eat up time off the clock, which is why they wouldn't have allowed as much points, because teams are just kind of chewing up the clock rather than running up the score. So teams, like I said, how teams when they play Seattle, they'll just throw until the clock hits 0. Well, teams against the Chiefs would throw, run, and they were marching down the field and scoring either way. I mean, the Chiefs' defense in 2018 gave up 53 points in a game where their offense scored 51 points. 51 points the Chiefs scored, and they still lost because of the defense. Now, Seahawks fans will probably say, oh, well, what about the Buffalo game just recently where we gave up 44? Well, yeah, you also lost that because Russell Wilson turned the ball over like 4 times. Okay? Now, if you go back and look at that Chiefs-Rams game, yeah, Mahomes had multiple turnovers, but that Chiefs offense was actually statistically one of the best of all time, averaging over 35 points per game. So, like, their offense was the reason they were even in it. And the defense just... I mean, the score changed so many times. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, that was the most score changes ever in a game. So, yeah, that's how bad the Chiefs defense was in 2018. I mean, they were nearly dead last in both categories. And the reason I make this video is because I see a lot of similarities between the Seahawks and the 2018 Chiefs. I think they're teams with prolific offenses and franchise quarterbacks the teams will go as far as the quarterback takes them. And that's really what the Seahawks are this year. I mean, like, they have a really bad defense, and their offense is really the reason they're in a lot of these games. But I don't know, man. I just don't know how you can sit there and say that the Seahawks defense is worse than the Chiefs. No, it's just because it's a passing league. So when you're giving up so many pass yards per game, like, it's going to stand out more. Like, yeah, their pass defense is awful. I mean, you can make an argument for their pass defense being one of the worst of all time, but they're not one of the worst defenses of all time. It's just that we play in a passing league, so yeah, I mean, when you get shredded, they're gonna notice. So that's just kind of how it goes. The Chiefs also gave up the most first downs in history of any defense that year. The most first downs ever, and it wasn't even close. I mean, Seahawks fans, surely you remember going up against the Chiefs in 2018, and Russell Wilson had one of his most perfect games ever against that defense. I just really wanted to put that argument to rest because it's not even really an argument, but I just got into an argument on Twitter and just kind of got fired up about it, wanted to make a video. But Seahawks, I mean, look, the Chiefs had a 68-year-old defensive coordinator, Bob Sutton, who made no adjustments at all. Ken Norton, like, the dude's trying. Bob Sutton was a freaking skeleton at defensive coordinator. Ken Norton is terrible, but, he has a pulse, Like, here's the thing. If I were the Seahawks, I give Ken Norton maybe 1 or 2 more games. I'm not really a huge fan of firing coaches mid-season because sometimes that can make things worse, but also at the same time when you fire a coach, you light a fire under the players, and they just play with, a little bit more comfort. But yeah, I would give Ken Norton like maybe 1 or 2 more games, and then if like you see no improvement whatsoever, because at least you're getting Jamal Adams back now, and I realize not just one player can fix the entire passing defense, but I mean Jamal Adams is a generational safety, and he does a lot. I mean, he can blitz, he's a great tackler, all that good stuff. So yeah, I mean, I give him a couple more games, and then maybe I would find maybe an inside guy to take over at interim, and maybe look for someone this offseason. Or Seahawks fans might call me crazy for this, but I would look into maybe giving Rex Ryan a spot at defensive coordinator. I'm pretty sure Rex Ryan's still floating around out there. The dude's a defensive-minded coach, and just hasn't really worked out as a head coach, but he always had good defenses. I would look into getting Rex Ryan as your defensive coordinator. That's actually someone I wanted the Chiefs to get back when they fired Bob Sutton. But yeah, I mean, what the Chiefs did is they made a bunch of offseason moves to fix their defense, and just they wrote out their 2018 season with Bob Sutton, and then they got rid of Sutton and a bunch of veterans, and they brought in guys like Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark. I'm not a huge fan of Frank Clark, but I can get into that in another video. But Tyrann Mathieu completely changed the way that secondary played. And I don't think Jamal Adams can necessarily do the same for Seattle, but I mean, he's definitely a huge boost. So like, I would just give it like a couple more games, and then maybe you can cut bait with Ken Norton. But Seahawks fans, like, you're going to go as far as Russell Wilson takes you this year. I mean, there's not really too much you can do at this point. You're going to go as far as Russell Wilson takes you. So good luck to Seahawks fans. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Make sure you check out www.showmefootball.com for more, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.